This mini lesson will discuss the impact of the United States Clean Air Act on the environment. Presented to you is useful information which I have expanded upon and/or explained regarding the history and milestones of clean air legislation in the United States, including a slightly controversial provision called cap and trade, along with a detailed graph documenting changes in various pollutant concentrations over time. References are provided in the last slide. As much is covered in this mini lesson in a short period of time, please don't hesitate to ask follow-up questions. So let's get started. While air pollution became a burgeoning problem at the turn of the 20th century, regulatory development to address this issue didn't gain significant traction until the mid-1950s, when the United States economy was growing rapidly. The ability to reach more people than ever through television, along with the rising baby boomer population, created an unprecedented demand for consumer products. Accordingly, factory production and automobile ownership were accelerating. Air emissions from cars, trucks, and factories were causing notable visual emissions, often in the form of smog, a term coined to describe a combination of smoke and fog. Noxious odors and respiratory ailments were becoming common occurrences in urban and industrialized areas. The 1955 Air Pollution Control Act called for studies to be conducted on this problem. After several years of studying the source of air pollution, Congress's enactment of the Clean Air Act of 1963 called for still more study to determine engineering solutions and establish some broad standards for stationary sources. While such studies identified cost-effective, readily adoptable methods to mitigate some air pollutants, the best available technology at that time was not sufficient to effectively reduce many common contaminants, such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, which are associated with the combustion of fossil fuels. We'll discuss more about these compounds further in this presentation. Recognizing the mobility of air contaminants, Congress enacted the Air Quality Act of 1967, which, for the first time, provided enforcement capabilities to address air contaminants moving across state lines. Having experienced significant pushback from regulated industries regarding the uncertainty associated with the severity of various air effluents, the Clean Air Act of 1970 promulgated national standards and required states to establish programs that would facilitate enforcement of same. In addition, car manufacturers were put on notice to design vehicles with exhaust treatment controls. One of the particularly poignant provisions of the 1977 amendments to the Clean Air Act was the requirement for states to timely announce any exceedance of a national primary ambient air quality standard. Engaging the public with such information was designed to keep the momentum going with continual efforts to prevent significant deterioration. The 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act provided much-needed focus on the reduction of acid rain. Commonly caused by a reaction of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide gases with water vapor, acid rain has caused significant environmental and public health problems. This illustration depicts some typical sources and areas that acid rain can impact. For example, you can see if acid rain is falling and percolating through soils, they can eventually end up in groundwater. As they are percolating down through the unsaturated zone into the saturated zone, they are leaching out metals such as arsenic and can contaminate both groundwater and surface water. Looking at the atmosphere in a more holistic manner, the 1990 amendments established an acid rain program, more commonly referred to as the cap and trade provisions of the Clean Air Act. This program logically accounts for the overall impact that air emissions may have on the environment. As such, facilities that emit less contamination than their air permit allows may monetize such achievement by selling emission allowances or credits to facilities that can benefit from exceeding their air permit limitations. While this provision is upsetting to those who believe that emission limits within an air permit should never be exceeded, the financial rewards of selling emissions credits has proven to be an incentive to develop innovative emission control designs that result in an overall decrease in air emissions to the environment. The US EPA continues to stand behind the cap and trade program. The following graph illustrates the overall improvements in air quality since the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act through 2015, as measured by reductions noted therein. For example, you can see from the green line here, which is sulfur dioxide, there's been significant decrease over time. There's been less decrease with nitrogen dioxide. However, with the combination of this decrease as well as the decrease in sulfur dioxide, the fossil fuel acid rain producing gases have been dramatically reduced. While significant improvements have been made as advances in emissions treatment control occur, and as sustainable green energy sources become more prevalent, the future looks bright for our air quality.